Today we're going to try some Georgian wines, the birthland of wine. I'm Jason.
And I'm Trent, and we're from The Wined Up. We're providing you an unfiltered, unapologetically unprofessional journey of wine.
And our slogan here is drink more, try more, learn more. And don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. And today is a special occasion because we have a special guest, Sean. Sean, whose Instagram handle is Shirazzmatazz.
Shirazzmatazz.
Thank you for joining us.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Pleased to be here. So,
And look, I was thinking about the opportunity for us to meet, and that's what I love about the wine community.
Yeah.
Everyone's kind of very friendly, reaching out, sharing their knowledge. And that's how this opportunity came about. Sean, I think you watched one of our episodes, the Riddoch IWC episode, where you'd mentioned
Georgian wines, the cradle of wine, which is being Georgia.
That's right. And then Sean reached out and said, hey, I've got a Georgian wine. Yeah. You want to give it a try, which is really the genesis of that. And really appreciate that. And that turned into us a bit of twisting into seeing if you'd join us on the podcast, which is graciously accepted. So thank you. Thanks for joining us.
No worries at all. Nice to have someone to share some wine with. So
Like-minded folk.
Always a pleasure.
And like we do whenever we have a guest on, we like to start off with some icebreaker questions. So we've got 4 icebreaker questions to help get to know you.
Yep.
And I might hand over to Trent.
Thank you. Yeah. So first one is your most memorable wine that you've tasted.
Look, I mean, there's been a lot of memorable wines along the way, probably. I think one of the ones for me was a 30-year-old Pinot Meunier from Best's Great Western that was shared. That was an amazing experience. It was, a pleasure just to drink a wine that was 3 decades on from vintage, but to see how a variety that typically wouldn't have developed has really evolved and was still in such a great drinking window. That was probably one of the best wine experiences for me that comes to mind. But there's so many. This is
just one of
probably
many.
Going to be another one.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Yeah,
sounds good. And then is there also one that you've been waiting to try as well that you got your eyes set on?
I think for me, it's more about experiencing the different types of wines and regions and countries and the way that different winemakers produce wine. And so I can say, sure, there's bottles of wine that I'd love to try, but I think I'd much rather explore different regions. And for me, some of those regions would be Etna, Piedmont, of course, and there's a little island in the Canary Islands, which I think is called Pico Island, I'm pretty sure. And I'd love to just experience the wines from there. So it's much more about delving into the different regions and the different varieties that exist. That
is another passion of yours as well, travel and also the wine as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's
a bit of backpacking in the
past.
Been
a little bit limited in recent years, but I think you can do a bit of traveling with your or through your wine glass and experience different varieties, different winemakers, different regions, different terroir that's out there beyond Australia's shores. That'll be
great.
Probably my answer for that one.
Okay. So a big thing that we do on our podcast as well is kind of unique wine pairing matches. Is there anything that you've come across that you want to share with us?
Yeah, a fairly tame one, I'd say, that springs to mind when we were traveling in New Zealand. We went to a lovely little small region off Auckland Harbour, which is Waiheke Island. And we visited a winery called Peacock Sky, and they did a really cool little food and wine pairing. It was 4 different types of food paired with 4 of their wines. And I think the one for me that really stood out was a Cabernet Sauvignon blend, 85% Cabernet. I think there was some Petit Verdot and some Malbec in there as well, paired with a dark chocolate fudge.
Wow!
So that was a clincher for me. It was really nice, great pairing, and great little exercise to go through as well.
Yeah, I had another person mentioned chocolate and wine pairings. I still can't process it in my mind how it works.
It's a hard one to pull off. I think if you're doing it as part of a wine tasting experience, it might be slightly easier or more convincing. But if you try and do it at home, it's probably not so.
So the Cadbury chocolate won't work?
No, probably not. No.
The Freddo Frog, I'm thinking.
Freddo Frog, caramello koalas. Next one, best piece of advice for amateurs going on our wine journey.
Yeah, look, I think be inquisitive and be open-minded would be my immediate answers to that. You don't need to have deep pockets to enjoy good wine. And, you know, Australia is amazing in terms of the regional expression of different varieties. And if you wanted to start simply by exploring the same variety from different regions in Australia, doing a bit of research, doing a bit of reading about what you're drinking about, that for me is the best way to experience wine, is to understand what you're drinking. Why does it taste the way that it does? Why is the acid profile different on this particular wine, or the tannin profile different? Why is the body different? And just do a little bit of exploration, a little bit of reading, a little bit of research, and it really pays off. Yeah,
it kind of has a light bulb moment for me. I don't know, with for you as well, where through this journey for me, it's like you kind of know what you like a lot more. Whereas before you just drank a lot but didn't really think about it. Now you actually know what you like a lot more in terms of the style and expression.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We were saying this in a previous episode. It's like choosing your wife. How do you know she's the right one if you've only tried the first one? Let's see.
But the thing with your wife, you have to stick with that for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and we've all made great choices. So that's a good. Was that all of the four icebreaker questions?
Those are icebreaker questions.
Well done. And so we might ask a bit more just about you and your wine journey before we get into the Georgian wines. And I was really curious about your approach to learning more about that wine, because you've clearly got a passion about finding out. You've got a curiosity that really sticks out. And where does that come from? Do you recall the first moment or moments that made you go, look, I really want to find out more about wine?
That's a hard one. I think in my kind of, formative drinking years, I skipped over beer, and I skipped over whatever premixed drinks you would drink as a teenager. And I think I went into wine because my parents, but particularly my father, had a pretty extensive wine cellar and still does. And I got to drink a lot of really nice different wines with different people. And I think I just developed a curiosity that way. And part of the reason I started my Instagram account was to kind of record what I'm drinking and do a little bit of research and share a little bit of knowledge. And I think I've kind of just stuck by that over the years. And you go into it going, okay, what's fermentation? What does that mean? What's mellow? What's primary fermentation? And then you just chip away at that foundational knowledge and build your way up. And it's really enjoyable, like going and exploring Georgian wines, different varieties, different winemaking methods. That it really is something that excites me and drives me to kind of learn more. So
do you think it's more around the science or the art of winemaking, or that you kind of like to explore? A little bit of
A and B, I think. I'm really interested in the vineyard aspects as well. So when I do look into a wine, I try and find out, okay, like what's the aspect of the vineyard, what's the soil types, how old are the vines, what's the climate and things like that. And the winemaking, of course, plays a part to it. I'm not necessarily someone who prescribes to the wine is made in a vineyard ideal, because if you were completely just hands off in your winemaking, I think that's fairly irresponsible. Like, you probably wouldn't end up with a product that is necessarily marketable. But there's definite science to it. There's a definite knowledge to it, which I probably will never fully understand. But the winemaking itself it's a very, very interesting aspect of it.
Great.
And the Instagram account, Shirazzmatazz, Is that, you mentioned there, it's purely to document your journey. There's no other ambitions. It's kind of, it's your personal account on your take and what you're learning and tasting. Is that what it is? Or are there other goals for it?
Not really. Not
That's
really.
great.
No, just to build up knowledge and really to give me a bit of a reference point. I can go through those posts. I can go right through back to the beginning, and I remember a lot about the different wines that I've been drinking, and I can look at the notes and I can look at the tasting notes, and obviously the tasting notes and the level of detail that I've gone into has evolved over time as I've learned more. But I like to look just at the pictures, and it evokes memories for me, and I can remember who I've shared bottles with, or the bottles I've just drunk by myself.
It's like your own personal diary, right? Around
basically, yeah.
That's great.
And I don't think I'm unique in having an account like that at all.
No.
But yeah, like I take pride in what I do. So
I think you're unique in the choices of wine, because you have a very diverse range of wine, and it's sometimes you can see other people, and there's nothing wrong with this, but it'll be pictures of a Grange. You were talking about Hill of Grace earlier, and that's and that's good too. But the diversity really springs out, and then your shot selection in your photos also springs out. So there's a lot of thought that's going into that, which I think is great.
Oh, thank you.
I love that element where it is like the diary of what you've been drinking, because I feel that a lot of the time we have those moments and we forget those moments.
Yeah.
And I like to have those pictures. Like, that's why I love this podcast in itself, that it kind of, when I listen back to some old episodes, and those are a lot rougher than it is now, it kind of, when you talk through it, you can actually then start to have those senses come through of that wine that you remember at that point in time.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Which I know that if I didn't purposely have this medium collecting it, I wouldn't have anything else. It would just be, I don't know, something in my back of my mind that
100%.
might pop up sometimes. Whereas now I have something that's concrete I can attach myself to.
Yes.
To say, hey, I remember when I had that wine with Jason, when I had that wine with Sean, or those Georgian wines, just look back at it and relive that moment.
Yeah.
Well, this is absolutely going to create the memory. And to be honest, while we're talking, the scent from these Georgian wines is really strong. It's something that's coming out.
In a good way.
In a good way, absolutely. So that might be a good segue into the heart of this topic. And so like I said earlier, today we are going to try Georgian wines, which is considered the motherland, the birthplace of wine. And it's my first time in having Georgian wines, to be honest. Is this your first time?
First time as well, yes.
Yeah, and Sean, I think we discussed this earlier. Not necessarily your first, but very close.
Yeah, at the most, my third.
All right, so almost new for all of us. Yep. And so another opportunity to try some wines here. And there might be a bit of information around Georgian wine. I wanted to give Sean the opportunity, if there's anything you wanted to share, anything you know about Georgian wines and its background. We've also got information.
Yeah, look, I mean, I'll do my best. 8,000 years of history. So going back to 6,000 BC, if my maths is correct on that.
That's right.
And yeah, it's a fascinating country that's been through a lot, particularly in recent times.
Yeah.
But you're talking 8,000 years. Georgia itself has a little bit hard to land on this, but I think about 10 wine regions and 29 protected designations of origins, which is like your appellations. Most of those are, in my understanding, in the east of the country, in Kakheti, I believe. But yeah, there's certainly a lot of winemakers spread across the country. So there's about 2,000 winemakers. Some of those are hobby winemakers, obviously, small batch winemakers, commercial, and wines being made in monasteries, I do believe, as well. And the Georgian wine itself is, I think there's a lot of pride in the native grapes that are being used, of which there's, I think, 525 and 38 that are being used in commercial winemaking. So it's a lot to unpack, and most of those grape varieties I cannot pronounce. But the ones that have made it to Australian shores would be things like Saperavi is probably the best known locally. Yeah. Which has...
that's a red. Yeah.
That is a red, yeah. So kind of an intensely dark red. There's plantings in the granite belts in Queensland. I think there's some in Victoria. I know there's some, I think, around Mildura. Yeah. Outside of that, I'm not 100% sure.
Interesting to see how they took cuttings from Georgia and took them all the way to granite belt.
Yes. Yeah. Granite belt. That's my heart. Love the place. Yeah. So that's kind of a little bit of a crash course, I guess, in terms of what I know about Georgian wine. I might let you.
I think you're bang on. It's tasting a bit of history. So they call it the birthplace of wine or the cradle of wine, cradle of life. But what is, I think, interesting is that there is a bit of a renaissance going on at the moment around Georgian wines. I don't know whether it's the reasons around that pride around the indigenous grape varieties, kind of post-Soviet era. Yes. Because I know during that time, there's a lot of suppression in terms of wipe it all out, mass production, and there we go. Then I think in the early 1990s, where it got dissolved and Georgia became Georgia, they started to be pushing a lot more of the indigenous grapes. And I think now it's coming a bit more popular, like even Italy, Australia, they're starting to use a lot of those kind of grape varieties. And we'll probably touch more now into the type of how they make wines that's slightly different. So I'll let you probably talk to that point.
Yeah, so the traditional winemaking method is with the earthen clay pots called Qvevri, which they will, I think, they are mostly, if not entirely, buried. Yeah. And the traditional way that they would make the wine is to have the grapes fermenting on the skins, and they would seal the Qvevri off with, say, like a wooden lid. Yeah. And the wines will kind of happily ferment on their own. And I think in some cases they would leave the wines there up to about 50 years, I believe, which you can only imagine what they would have been like. But that traditional winemaking method has continued through to today. Yeah. And certainly I like when I look at the wines that are made from Qvevri that I can find, even if they're made outside of Georgia, it's quite exciting because it's not your kind of commercial winemaking approach that you would find, say, in Australia. So yeah, there's a big kind of pride, I guess, that flows through, and the modern winemaking is making use of the traditional, which is great. Yeah,
you're bang on there. Like what I read is like they just put the whole grapes, stems, skins into the Qvevri, or they call it amphoras in some, I guess, the style. And then they actually use a resin there to also seal the inside of it. Sometimes it's beeswax, sometimes it's pine base or something like that. So you can imagine it's a mixture of that kind of resin affecting the wine, also slight oxidation going through the clay pots as well, creating different wines. And the reason some people also like it now, because it can also naturally kind of filter the impurities out of it as well, better than some of the modern methods. So you're having this very kind of organic, natural, hipster style of making wines. It's very much untouched, more fruit forward, no impact of oak, which is a very different style as well. So it's going to be very interesting as the kind of aromas start to come through.
Which they're coming through. You can really smell it. I think that covers a lot of the stuff that I've read as well. You know, I had to apologize up front because apologies to any Georgians out there, because I actually didn't know the location of where it was.
Yeah. Do you know where it is?
And my understanding, it's on the border of Russia and Turkey, I think.
Turkey, Armenia, and Azerbaijan.
It's on the border of all of it.
And then on the left is the Black Sea, and then the northeast is Russia. Yeah.
Right. And then the phrases and the terms, particularly of the wine grapes and varieties, I have to apologize for as well, because I'm probably going to get it wrong.
Your Georgian's not very good.
But we want to try it. Yeah. I think I had, when choosing some of the wines, I had a chance to talk to Tanya from Tamada. Tamada is a wholesaler distributor in the Sydney space. in Smithfield, specifically exclusive for some of the Georgian wines that we have here. And she said 3 things to me. She said, one, if you're going to try a Georgian wine, the Qvevri is the way to go. It doesn't mean that Georgian wines not produced in that style aren't good, but it's really to get the introduction into it. So when thinking about Georgian wines, it's not just that the fermentation in the stainless vats, etc., European style. They also offer that and are also quite delicious. The other thing that she said is that we're never going to have a wine like this. It's that unique.
Yeah.
And honestly, from the smell that I'm getting, again, which is good, it's something I've never tried before. And then the third thing she said was something to be aware of when they label their wines. They label it with the word unfiltered. And to your point around it being a natural wine, it's coming straight from the ground from these pots. So there may be a bit of cloudiness to it. Doesn't mean that it's bad in any way. It's just the natural style of how they produce the wines.
Yeah. I think the other point I've got to mention as well, when you look at the color now, it's very orange amber type of color. And this is like the OG for amber wines. It's also very up and coming and hipster at the moment as well. So,
which is also a first for me. I've never had an amber wine before, which is exciting. So I think that's a good overview of the wines. I think we should get right into it because the bottles and the glasses are waiting for us. So we have 3 bottles here. And the first one that we have, I don't know if we can hold this to this camera. The first one that we have is Gurashvili's Kisi is the grape variety. As he laughed, Kisi is okay. I can pronounce that.
I'm happy that you're pronouncing it, not me.
Which is a dry white.
Yeah. So this from, to what Sean mentioned before, it is on the eastern side of Georgia in the Kakheti region. And this one you picked it up for?
This one, I think, we'll put the prices in there, but I think it was about
$47.
Oh, it's pretty good.
We're just testing you.
Well done. Thank you. And so should we go with
go.
Eyes, scent, and taste? So on the eyes... And to be honest, I'm looking at both of the whites, and they're both quite amber and actually very similar in color.
I think this one's actually slightly lighter. I don't know whether it's just the light behind it or not, but
slightly darker in my mind. But it's kind of got this golden hue, burntness around it.
So what's the grape variety in this one? The Kisi variety.
Kisi.
Yeah.
And
on the nose, what are you smelling? For me, it's very strong apricots.
Yeah, definitely your stone fruit.
I've never had a wine smell like this before. You're right. Apricots sing out.
Dried apricots, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. Any other sense that either of you are getting there?
It's kind of the dried fruits, so dried apricots. I think quince is another one that kind of pops to mind as well.
It's a little bit like herbal.
Yeah, I get that coming through
now.
now.
Herbs, maybe a little bit like green.
Slightly medicinal,
Yeah.
Okay,
let's taste it.
Let's give it a taste. But like, if I'm looking at this color, I would think it would be something sweet based on my knowledge bank. But it's a dry white, so
It doesn't taste what I was expecting from the smell.
No.
Wow.
describe it while we give it a taste.
Very dry. The tannins, it's not big, but it's very broad across the palate. It's not like a big red tannins. It's there, then kind of like goes away. It doesn't linger. But it's, as I say, it's not what I expected. For me, it kind of smelled sweet, like a sweet sauterne or something like that. But when you taste it, it's not what I expected.
So Tanya said this when she mentioned this wine. She said it will look like a white, but it'll taste like a red. And on the palate, it's more towards the typical reds that I would have, almost like a I don't know, like a lighter a Pinot or anything like that. But
it's like a medium-bodied white that you would want, like some, I don't know, like roast chicken with or something like that.
Yep. Definite food wine.
Yeah.
Fine, fairly persistent tannin. Kind of goes with your dried white fruit, though. I think your like kind of dried stone fruit. I thought there was like a little bit of like a caramelized, like a burnt sugar thing going on in the back, like right at the back palate when I was tasting it. But this is I think fairly approachable in terms of amber wine. It's quite nice, definitely a food wine.
Now that I have a bit longer, the length is coming through as well. It's that there's that herbal, but I don't know what specific herbaliness is coming through. But it's subtle but addictive.
yes, it's really interesting because the flavor profile is so subtle. It's not what you typically expect when you've got something of this finish, and this body. But I think the thing for me is that there's nothing that stands out where it's, oh, that flavor doesn't taste really good, or there's actually not a part of it that I dislike. It's just something so unique that I've never experienced before.
Then the slight heat of the alcohol's coming through now as well. But then if it does feel that everything's quite balanced with this wine.
Yeah, I think it's quite approachable, quite enjoyable.
Quite yummy, I think.
Yeah.
I do want a roast chicken right now.
Yeah.
So 13% on that one. All right, so that's the first of the whites, and I might move that to the side, and we'll try the next one, which is,
You got to pronounce the grape variety for this one.
Rkatstiteli.
which is thank you for saying that. I was shaking in my boots. Rkatstiteli, which is another white wine from Georgia, and my understanding is this is the most common and widely used white grape variety from Georgia, and often used on its own or in a lot of the blends that they'd be making as well.
Yeah.
Did you have any notes from your view?
And I
on
saw
it?
on the website as well, this one's 5 months in Qvevri. So I don't know what that translates to in terms of flavor, but we can probably go straight into it and try this one as well.
Yeah, so on the eyes, you know what, I was expecting more cloudiness, to be honest, when I was hearing it described. I can't see much, to be honest. It's still quite clear golden.
Even if it is unfiltered, is it?
Yeah, that's right.
You want like that cloudy apple juice.
I was picturing the pet nat that we had the other time. Yeah. And then on the nose, I don't know. I'm getting more savory notes on this one in comparison to the apricot.
Savory, yeah, salty.
Wow. Yeah, salty. I almost get
Dried fish is like...
Yeah, that's right. I was going to say I almost get a scent of chicken salt.
It's the Asian,
this kind of seasoning.
That kind of Asian
You're
dry
right.
salted fish.
Well, when you said that like,
but in a nice way,
Yes, the dried squid.
Yeah.
What kind of sense are you getting?
I could be way off here, but this reminds me a little bit of like dried mango.
Yeah.
On the nose, there's a definite hit of like sweetness that I'm getting, which reminds me a little bit of dried mango that you'd have in the Philippines.
Yeah.
You're right.
I do get that kind of savor, a bit fish saucy, like as well.
Yes, but there's a hint of the dried mango, right? Hiding in there as an element. You can smell it.
Definite kind of like that saltiness coming through. Though I do get that. It's a lot more complex, I think, than
the Kisi.
It's got a lot of the elements of the first wine, I think.
Yeah.
But then just piled on in terms of the additional.
So what were the previous grape varieties that you'd had from Georgia?
Yeah, good question. I've had Saparavi.
Yeah. Have you had this one, the Rkatstiteli before?
I think the last one was a Rkatstiteli.
Going back into
it wasn't. No. Sorry, I've got it listed here, so it's and apologies again for the pronunciation. It's a Qvevri, so Khikkhvi.
Ah, okay.
And that was from Qvevri as well.
That was a red?
No, it was an amber wine.
Was an
amber wine as well, yeah. But really, probably twice as
pungent,
dark. Well, twice as dark as this.
Yeah.
So I'd have to go back to my notes to remember like how long it was on skins for as well in Qvevri. But yeah, it was interesting, very interesting.
It actually smells quite strong and pungent, this one.
It does, but familiar as well because of some of those Asian dried squid and fish. I'm actually quite excited by it because it's so different. Just trying to see, the price for this was about $35 to give you an indication. So still quite affordable. You've had a taste. What are you tasting?
Again, the wines are strange in the sense that it's not what you smell. It just tastes completely different.
Yep.
When I taste it, it kind of tastes more like a tannic kind of pear juice, like pears coming through, and not the kind of savouriness that I was expecting.
So you said this was it 5 months on skins?
5 months, yeah.
Did you see how much the first one was on skins?
Was it in the notes there? Let me see
5
if
months
it's in
as
the
well.
bottom.
5 months as well.
Oh.
Yeah, I feel like this has got a bit more of a kind of concentration to it. The tannin profile is, I think, more integrated but bigger, I think, than the first. Tannin is finer, but a lot more kind of persistent, I think.
I know, for me, this one feels a bit more lighter, but the tannin's more centered around the middle.
Yes.
Lighter body.
Yeah, lighter body, but I kind of, just thinking about it, I think I prefer the first one than the second one.
On its own, I think on its own. But I'm curious about pairings with certain foods, what that would be like.
We're all having dinner tonight, right? So.
And then Sean invited us over to try this one. And so I'll hold this to the screen, but maybe, Sean, you wanted to say the variety and any background in regard.
Yeah, no worries. So this one's a Dzelshavi, which is a pretty prolific grape variety grown in Racha, I believe is the pronunciation. I could be wrong.
Is it Racha?
Could be Racha, which is R-A-C-H-A or R-A-T-C-H-A, depending on where you're reading it. It's a region that is to the north of Emirati. So it sits to the north of Emirati. It's a little bit smaller. It's south of the Caucasus. So it gets that kind of cooling effect from the mountains. As a varietal, its earliest, I think, earliest recordings of the variety being used would have been around 5th century AD.
Yeah.
And it's a thin-skinned red variety. It's a good substitute locally for Pinot Noir, Gamay, and Cabernet Franc. And this is made by a winery called the Oda, which is ODA Family Wines. It's got quite an eye-catching label there as well, and from 2020 vintage. Yeah, it spent 7 months in an amphora. As a red, it'll obviously be quite different in terms of what that does to the wine, but coming from vines that are 65 years old.
Wow.
So that's the lowdown that I've got on the wine.
No, well done.
Different variety as well.
And when you're saying it's kind of like a Pinot or a Gamay, on the eyes, it's actually quite dark.
Yeah.
Quite dark, yeah.
Yeah.
And all that extraction from the time on skins.
Yeah. Which is exciting. Okay, so dark. What were we going to say?
I'm just trying to process it. It's like when you.
Is there a very unique smell?
Yeah.
All right, I haven't smelt it yet. Let's give it a smell.
Yeah. I'm going to use that very kind of broad term around kind of earthy, herbal notes coming through.
Yeah, I'm noticing that with all of these wines, a lot of those herby notes, a bit twiggy.
Clayey?
For this one in particular, which would make sense.
I wonder if it ever actually tastes a bit like the clay that it's in, like, and the type of clay they use as well.
You'd
the clay pots.
You'd think that it would impart some flavor, but I think it's pretty small.
It's like when you do pottery, you have that kind of strong smell of what it smells like and go, is that anything?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting. It's probably like oak. I mean, maybe it's not. But obviously, you know, the older the oak is, the less it imparts the flavors. Maybe it's the same with clay. I don't know. Be a good thing to find out.
It actually smells like quite aromatic, but does smell like something that's been inside the ground.
It doesn't, or it does?
It does.
Really?
What are you smelling?
I get a very strong savory and herby notes, but the fruit in these wines, they're kind of really, well, in this wine in particular, it's kind of hidden. Like, I don't get much fruit from it.
I think it's darker.
Yeah.
I couldn't specify, but I would say darker berries, more so than kind of in the red spectrum.
All right, let's give it a taste. I think Trent's had a go.
Haven't tasted it. I'm just processing the smell from it, trying to think about what it is, because you can smell the fruit.
Yeah, can you?
In it, you can, but it's more in the background than in the foreground.
It is quite subtle. I'll tell you what, in terms of a scent, I actually enjoy it. Like, this is we talked about previous episodes where you could bottle up the scent. This is I actually don't mind the scent. It's quite nice.
It's quite enticing, I think.
Yeah.
Or maybe intriguing is a better word.
Intriguing. There's unique smells that you get attached to.
Right off the bat, the texture in the mouth is actually quite a different mouthfeel. And when you're talking about a cloudy wine, it actually feels like there's a few like particles or so forth to adding that texture.
What are you getting from this one, Sean?
I would say it's quite earthy. But yeah, I would say on the palate, it's like sour plums, plum skin,
sour fruits,
maybe some dark cherry in there as well. Say like earthy spice notes, things like that. It's quite interesting. I wouldn't compare it to a Pinot Noir. Probably wouldn't compare it to a Gamay, but I can see where that's coming from. It's a light to medium bodied, probably more so on the medium side of things. Tannin structure is quite integrated, but the acidity is quite fresh. Yeah.
I really like the length on this as well, though.
Yeah.
And
enjoyable.
And the length of it just develops with that kind of earthiness as well.
The tannins are amazing, I think.
That's really good. The other one I noticed, this one is also a limited release as well. There's only 900 bottles that create.
Yeah, which I think is quite special. You know, you find a wine from another side of the world, you manage to get one of the 900 bottles that have been made. I think it's one of the things that I really enjoy about this, the kind of being able to explore. We've got 3 different grape varieties from Georgia, all of them made in Qvevri, all of them very different, but they've been in Qvevri for the same amount of time. And I think it's a nice little snapshot into the wines that Georgia makes.
Yeah. What food would you have with this wine? Or do you think it's just a drinking wine?
Oh, the whites, I really like the idea of a roast chicken.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I've had a amphora matured Georgian wine with just focaccia.
Yeah.
And oil, and it worked really well.
Yeah. The other thing I also read up when I was looking up Georgia is the food's incredible there as well. They didn't get into the detail around what the type of food is.
I'd love to know what kind of. I'm so curious now.
They said that all the food's amazing in Georgia as well. So good wines, good food.
So one of our episodes we need to do in Georgia.
Yeah, sounds good.
Sounds great. I'll be there.
You're there.
I'll be there. Are we going to try and rate these ones as well, or?
Yeah, I think we should. I think we should give Corkscrew ratings if just to give an indication to our listeners and viewers on whether or not we like it, etc., whether or not to go. And so maybe if we start from the Kisi, in terms of Corkscrew ratings, I'm trying to process. I know which one I like the most. I know which one I like the most, and it's the one that Sean's given us to taste. So thank you so much. All of them were quite interesting, but really everything about that last one, I'd recommend buying another bottle and getting some more. But I'm trying to process Corkscrew ratings.
I'll go while you think.
Yeah, if you.
So I'll go for Sean's one, the Oda family Dzelshavi. I'll go for like 8 out of 10 for that one. Second one will be the Kisi, the 7 out of 10, and then the one that I probably didn't like as the best was the middle one there, the Rkatstiteli, yeah.
Good stuff. Sean, if out of 10, the wind-up Corkscrew ratings.
I really enjoyed the first wine that we had, the Kisi. I thought it was very approachable, which I think is very important if you're trying amber wine. It loses out on complexity, I would say, to the second wine, which I think I enjoyed the second wine for different reasons. I think in terms of the complexity, I enjoyed it. I quite like the aroma.
Yeah, it
was very, very interesting to contrast the aroma with the taste on the palate. Yeah. I think I probably have a bit more of a soft spot for this wine. I do lean towards reds anyway, but in terms of what it's offering, I think it's quite tasty, and I think it can be enjoyed on its own or with food. And the other two maybe is a little bit more challenging. Yeah.
So the Dzelshavi first.
Yeah.
I would say for me the Dzelshavi.
Followed by the Kisi.
Yep.
Followed by
you like the
Rkatstiteli.
Rkatstiteli,
yeah.
Ah, okay. And I think we're all on the same. Like the Dzelshavi was amazing. I'd give that a 9 out of 10. I think it's such a different scent and flavor and profile, but everything was quite well balanced in my mind. And like you said, to have it on its own or with food, either way, enjoyable. Yeah. You know, I can't get over the scent of the Rkatstiteli. Rkatstiteli. Thank you for keep on correcting me. And apologies.
Because it starts with the R, that's why.
It's confusing me. I can't get over the scent. I just had another sniff while you were talking, and I really enjoyed that. So I got to say I prefer that purely because that scent kind of overpowers everything else. The flavor was still good, and then the Kisi, the apricot flavor was okay. Probably not something that I prefer. And so 9, 7 for the Rkatstiteli, and then 6 for the Kisi.
Awesome.
What an introduction to Georgian wines. It's been, to be honest, it's been quite mind-blowing in terms of having wine which we're so familiar with and drinking with, all of the classical varieties that we have, and then trying something completely different which makes your mind think, oh, hold on, that looks like it should be sweet, but actually it's not. That smells like this, but it's actually not. It's playing a mind game, which is really quite intriguing.
That's why it's really hard sometimes, like we're doing the podcast, when you have those quiet moments and you're there just processing the different smells and flavors. It's like, what is that? What is that? But yeah, amazing experience. What really surprised me was the difference between the smell to the taste.
Yes.
Like the smell kind of tricks you one way, and then it gives you, was it the fake and then the left jab on the other side? They give you something else, which is really surprising. But yeah, I love the Shalby, especially the length of it and that aroma that it keeps on developing.
So we're probably going to wind this episode up. But before we do, Sean, did you have any last comments that you wanted to share about the wines or anything else?
No, I think, this has been a really enjoyable experience. And as I said, great to explore 3 different varieties as well in one sitting. It's not something I get to do terribly often. So yeah, fantastic to explore these with you gents. And thanks for having me on.
Awesome.
Likewise, and hopefully we can have you on as a regular guest, mate. Some fantastic tasting that we've had to you, and this has created another memory to your point earlier, which we're really grateful for. Trent and I are grateful for you inviting us over and sharing a bottle of wine. So thanks for that. For me, I'm really intrigued by Georgia. Of all these 3 wines have made me think, and it's made me go on. All of the 3 wines, I think, had their own standing. Nothing there has said, that's disgusting, I never want to be there. It's actually gone the reverse. It's like, hold on, this is so unique and different. I want to go over there. I want to try more Georgian wines. I think it's something that for those with a traditional wine palate, probably is going to extend it quite a fair bit. So you can have the curiosity that Sean has to try some more. So it's been a great opportunity. And so that's the episode for today. Georgian wines, 100% give it a try. Sean, thank you again for inviting us over. It's been fantastic getting to meet you and try the wines. And as we say here in the wind up, drink more, try more, learn more. And don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Thanks all.
Thanks.